live, ladies and gentlemen. And yes, I think it's happening. So without any more messing around, there we are, ladies and gentlemen. The Marketing Geeks are again coming to you live and in your eardrums. Hey, Justin.
Yo.
What is the most expensive streaming service right now?
The most out of like Netflix and Hulu and those ones?
Out of all the streaming services out there, what's the most expensive streaming service?
I'm going to go with Netflix because I have no idea.
Wrong. You're wrong. It's the answer. The correct answer is online education.
Ooh, tricky question.
Yeah,
tricky.
Man.
Good one.
Yeah.
Good one.
Yeah. And so I've actually, there are some questions that I have about online education these days. Don't you?
Well, I'm curious too, because like in the age of COVID, in the age of what's changing in the world, like how is online education working these days? Like what's the competitive landscape like?
I don't know, man. This isn't my area of expertise. So maybe we should do what we normally do when we're stuck in a situation like this.
Well, it should be though. It should be your area of expertise.
Dude, I've got so many areas of expertise. It's coming out of my eardrums. There's only so much expertise that could happen at any given point. But let's bring on a real expert for a change. Why don't we?
Let's do it. Yeah.
Okay, and we will do that right after this. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Andros Sturgeon.
And I'm Justin Womack.
And we are the Marketing Geeks. Yeah, we are. And we're gonna play our awesome little intro here in just a second. It's going to happen, ladies and gentlemen.
It's going to happen.
Here it is.
Get excited.
It's playing. Wow, that was awful. That was like hitting 10 buttons.
I shared it on Facebook. I don't see your...
I don't see it at all.
Well, hopefully it'll go live. Let's see. It should be... it says I'm going live. It's happening.
Well, I saw you on Facebook live, so I shared that one.
It's on my wall. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being here today. Tell us about our guest, Mr. Womack.
Yeah, I'm excited today because we have a online education expert joining us, Dr. Joe Sallustio. And he's led a broad range of educational institutions, including a regionally accredited nonprofit university, a regionally accredited for-profit university, both online, and nationally accredited for-profit college, which was more of a hybrid, giving him a wide range of knowledge in on-ground and online higher education administration. So in the ever-evolving and competitive online higher education landscape, his diversity of experience is necessary for successfully leading a university into the future. And with nearly 2 decades of experience in higher ed operations, Joe has led teams in marketing, enrollment, finance, financial aid, student services, student affairs, human resources, accreditation, Title IV, compliance, business-to-business relationships, and product strategy for on-ground/hybrid and online universities. Specifically, his extensive experience in scaling marketing and enrollment activities has driven the success of many of the institutions he's served. Joe earned his Doctor of Education in Organizational Leadership from North Central University, and he also holds a Master's Science in Organizational Leadership, Strategic Human Resource Management from Regis University, and a Bachelor of Science in Speech Communications from the State University of New York College at Oneonta. So please welcome to the show, Dr. Joe Sallustio. How are you, Joe?
I'm great, guys. You almost put me to sleep with my own bio, so I'm gonna.
I told you it's a long one, so
I have to work on that. And I have to tell you guys, my last name is pronounced Sallustio, and you have to do it with a little bit of Italian panache.
Oh,
when
wow!
You say it. If you shake your hand like this, you say it better.
Usually, getting the names of our guests wrong is my department. So thanks, Justin, for getting it this week. I appreciate it.
I'm usually better at that. All right.
Joe, tell us, for our listeners who don't know who you are, why don't you give us a little rundown about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so Joe Sallustio, I am higher education junkie. I've been in the industry for almost 20 years. I grew up in Syracuse, New York. So any college basketball fans out there, the Syracuse Orange, the greatest team ever, grace the court. Well, that's just my opinion. And also snow country for those of you that never lived in upstate New York. And, undergraduate, came to Denver, Colorado for about 17 years, then on to Southern California. I hated education. I hated school with passion. I had no direction. The only A's I got my undergrad were in ballroom dancing and racquetball. So, I just didn't have any taste for it. And you fast forward, you end up going to have kids and you have a career, and all of a sudden you get more mature. And so I went on to master's and doctorate. The only reason I think I did that is because I worked in education. You go to these graduations and see people in cap and gown, and then you want to kind of do it too. Especially if you're seeing it all the time. So here I am in SoCal and leading a university called Claremont Lincoln University as the chief operating officer and trying to grow enrollment.
I know it. I in fact, I actually did a small gig with them with some filmmaker friends of mine. We helped with a marketing plan a long time ago. So the Josh and Rebecca Tickell, I don't know if you know them. Josh has been a guest on the show, and we did basically like an overview of the entire way that the online presence was. So you may have even seen the report at some point if you came on a little bit after that. This was several years ago, but it's a really cool school, actually.
There's two. Just to clarify, there's two graduate schools in Claremont. There's my school, Claremont Lincoln University, and then there's Claremont Graduate School, which is probably the one you're talking about. And that's there's 7 universities in the Claremont area, so people tend to get them all mixed up.
So let's start with this. So you've been running Claremont, the online university over there. This has been an online school for several years, correct?
Yep. Yeah, since really in school years, we're a little baby. Since 2014 is really when we became independent. So it's been just a little bit.
So okay, let's talk about then the current situation that's going on here with COVID. So how has online education changed now that some of the major universities out there, I know off the air you mentioned like LSU as an example, is now online. So people can actually go to these major universities online. They don't have to live out of state anymore to attend them. So how is that affecting like schools like Claremont or schools like University of Phoenix, like those kind of online education that are the more traditional ones we used to hear about? How is that changing?
Yeah, that's a big question, and it's actually happening, right? So as you're asking the question, it's unfolding by the second. The answer to that right now is that most online institutions, ours in particular, we've only seen growth. We've grown pretty rapidly, and I think during COVID, that's you think about what people are doing at home. They're doing what the three of us are doing. They're sitting at home and they're wondering, what do I do next? And can I do this at night? And so there's flexibility for the adult learner, which is the fastest growing part of the population of learners right now. For traditional students, it's a different story, right? Yeah, you could go anywhere in the country that you want to. What's happening, though, is you think about parents and kids. And parents have a lower risk tolerance than their kids do. So a lot of kids are staying home. Instead of going away to school, even if that school is reopening, they're staying home. They're looking at community colleges. They're taking a break, and we're calling that a gap year in the higher ed vernacular. They're just going to take a year off and see what happens with coronavirus. So a lot of schools, many, are declining in their enrollment.
Now, you mentioned that the older demographic is the fastest growing right now for online education. Can you elaborate on that? Like, what percentage of growth are you seeing now? And is that after COVID? Is that when this grew, or was this already kind of happening?
Yeah, it's already kind of happening. I think there's when people think universities, they think of the 18-year-old that's just, been birthed from high school that's going to go into college now. But the majority of students who are enrolling are adult students. They're going back for their bachelor's degree because it's 10 years out of school, or their master's degree, their doctorate. So that's where a lot of schools have been pumping dollars right now, is into expanding the adult student. There's just a lot of people out there that are looking for education, and online gives you the flexibility to do it. So the accessibility is much greater than it's ever have been.
Yeah. Now this is kind of interesting because I read a book, and unfortunately I can't remember the name of it, but one of the things that he was talking about, the author, was that questioning the whole idea of higher education, because there's a lot of people who are told, okay, well, you got to get this higher education. on one level, it proves that you can finish something that you start. But on another level, people are coming out into the workforce 50, 100,000 or more in debt, and with jobs that aren't really getting them anything, right? So for a long time, I didn't really quite finish college almost, but I just went into the workforce. And what I found is that my work experience is just as good as any type of education. And I see that kind of more and more. How is that changing kind of the landscape of higher education? And is it better to just like focus on certain areas that you can become an expert in?
Great question, and I'll tell you, higher education wrestles with that on a daily basis. The answer to that is that there are different people, so there need to be different choices. Now, one of the industries that has questioned the value of higher education is the tech industry, right? And Google is a good example of that. Amazon saying you don't need to go to college; you can get coding. You can take our coding classes. You're going to move right into Google. We're going to train you. And so you're seeing some technology companies really invest in their employee training. What I would say, though, is it depends. It depends on the industry you work in. If you're going to go and be in education, or you're going to go be in healthcare, those degrees are really securing your future. If you're an entrepreneur, do you need to go to get a formalized higher education, or do you need sales skills? Because you may not learn sales while you're in your bachelor's degree. You might learn communications, but not sales, right? Nobody teaches sales.
Not at a high level.
Yeah. Not at a high level, yeah, and so it depends. It depends on what your path is, and there's a lot there. Value is a continual question. Now, debt is what creates the value question. But look, I've been in this game long enough to know that there is you have to do your research. I mean, if you want to go to Pepperdine, or I hate naming schools, Harvard or Princeton, or schools that have huge reputations, you will pay. And what you pay for is not a higher quality education; it's networking, right? You pay for this incredible network of people you meet. But if you want to go to school and do it for a low cost and come out with a degree, you can do it, and you don't have to take on large amounts of debt to get there.
Now, you mentioned networking, which I've said on this show, and I've said to other people that one of the biggest values of higher education is networking. And you look at people like Mark Zuckerberg. Yeah, he didn't graduate from Harvard, but look at the network he created while he was there. Or Bill Gates. Look at the people that he met while he was there. And so the networking component is to me the biggest, but that only applies, you're going to Ivy League schools and the higher end schools. So as an online education facilitator, are you finding ways to replicate some of that networking? Because I know with online, you do have chats and you have ways for students to interact with each other, but is there a growing effort to try to kind of bring the community and make more interaction between students?
Yeah, and I think that's a key component of, if you're going to go for your graduate degree and you're going to do it online, yeah, you want the degree, but what are you getting along the way? And networking with other students and alumni is an important component. So we have to be very intentional. There's a big difference, and you guys saw all these schools go online, right? Moving a ground program to online. Oh, shoot, I knocked my microphone over. This is how passionate I get about it. It's like taking you use an analogy. It's an apple and an orange. It just isn't going to work. Now, when you create online education and you're intentionally creating it for engagement, you get the same amount of networking. Now, can you sit next to that person and have lunch? No, but we have events every year where students can come out, or at least we did, and hopefully we will have events every year where the students come and they come together with the faculty. But yeah, all of those rooms, all of those Zooms, and we can see that you can live life on Zoom right now or live stream with people and still network in the same way. But you have to be built. It has to be built to do it. You can't just move something and get something, if that makes sense.
Does your school use, do you have lectures that are being taught over Zoom, or are you, because I've taken online classes at a local JC from, years ago, and they didn't really have lectures. So they would just have material that you would read. They would have maybe some videos that were pre-recorded, things like that. But I'm wondering, are things moving more towards a Zoom and lecture environment where people can kind of attend the class and still get the lecture, or what's happening? What are you seeing?
I think it depends on the level. I think that's probably true for undergrad, right? For graduate, it is more about the engagement. It's about discussion boards. It's about Zoom calls with your faculty member to find out how you can learn to write better or learn how to understand this better or that better. Group projects are an important part of this, right? How do you take the three of us and do a marketing project out there? All we need is the internet and the knowledge, and we're going to hit a home run, right? So a lot of it is that it is engagement, but some people don't want it. If you want to, some people who learn online, they don't ever want to be contacted. We have students that literally we had never see or never talk to. Everything they do from the minute they send their information to us to the time they graduate is completely on their own. They don't want that engagement. So there is so much is about choice, and it's about catering to the in higher education. Beware, I'm going to say it, catering to the consumer, because students are consumers, right? They are customers of our businesses.
Well, you said it. You called students consumers.
Some people somewhere in higher ed are going, "That's son of a gun over there." You just know what he's talking about.
It's also a great time to be an introvert, and
talk to anybody.
What's really interesting is there is a whole generation of young people who are growing up online, playing video games with their friends, chatting online. They're so used to it. I feel like there's, part of what's happened with COVID is that there is an inevitability that was bound to happen, where our lives were going to be more a hybrid of online and real world. And this just sped up the entire process. Can you explain a little bit? Because I want to take a step back here. How did you end up doing this, first of all?
In education, you mean?
Yeah, just doing specifically marketing. Yeah, marketing for education. Like, how did that come about?
Well, by the way, you're going to hear my garage door go off because I got kids and a wife coming in and out of the house, work from home. So
it's real life. It's real life.
It happens. It's funny that you say that, because I was in sales, right? So the first job I ever got on my undergrad was recruiting people to give blood. That's still the hardest job I ever had. I worked at a blood center, and I had to call you on your way home from work and try to get you to come in and give plasma. And it was like, who the hell wants to do that? So that was a hard job.
What was the pitch on giving blood? What was the value proposition?
You're going to save lives. You're going to save lives, and you stop and give me an hour and you'll save someone's life. Believe it or not, most people didn't care. I have to say it like that. They just didn't have the time. And that's, something that maybe we're more mindful these days. But I sold two-way pagers. You guys remember SkyTel, Motorola two-way pagers? That was a deal, right? I worked for a competitive company called Arch Wireless. Before you could call on the cell phone, you could text on this big shell-top device that opened up, and you had something called guaranteed messaging, which is can you imagine me selling you that you're going to get your messages when you go out of the coverage zone? So then I applied to an ad I saw in the paper for sales executive in education, right? So I thought, if I could sell a two-way pager, I can go sell education, something that I truly, or at least at that time was 50-50 that I believed in. But I could definitely sell, right? Ice to an Eskimo. So I went and I did, and I was really good. And I was really good at it because I could build the confidence of someone who was wondering if they could do it. And I saw that as the secret. You want to get people to enroll and stick with school, you have to build confidence. It's not about anything else. They could find a school here or a school there that meets their expectations, but it's the person who builds their confidence is where they end up going. So I was good at it, and I stayed with it. And I kept getting promoted, and it just all fell in place. And I have never hated a day of work. I love what I do.
That's cool.
I've moved. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, so how does marketing, digital or like online classes, or in education, how is that different from what you were doing before? I mean, like, how do you go about the process of finding students who might be interested? Like, I'd like to know your whole marketing funnel, the types of campaigns you run, what channels. Your channels, your market segments, the whole bit.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're when you're talking about higher education, you ask that question, the answer is actually really similar to any other industry. We are trying to locate a customer who meets the qualifications for enrollment or to buy, if you will. And so we're looking really at three primary segments or channels. One is organic, right? So we're putting a lot of SEO. We build in the SEO. We've got content build on our website. We do a lot of videos and all that, driving as many people to the site as possible for the organic stuff. We do podcasts. We do all that kind of stuff. Secondly is the Google, right? If you're not in Google, you're not advertising, you're not doing Google ads. What are you doing? So it's expanding our AdWords. Now, one of the things that you think about is we had about 400 or so AdWords when I started that we were bidding on, and now that we pumped that up to like 28,000, depending on what your program is. And, those are two. And then third is referrals, right? We're a big time referral based business in education. You have a great experience here and somebody that wants to get an education, you refer them just like any other business you can think of. So it's a sophisticated, we do a lot of social. We do a lot of social media. We do ads on, sorry, my wife and kids are just going in and out of the garage. But we do a lot of social media, Facebook ads. We do a lot of organic stuff on Instagram, YouTube. We're on every channel we can be on. We even try to experiment with TikTok, trying to figure out how the heck to make that sucker work for higher ed. So we're all over the place. And it's very, very competitive.
Yeah.
Because there are just less people interested in college than there ever have been before. And there are more schools that want you, especially the ones that are in trouble right now, that need you to continue their operations and so they don't fail and close. So it's really, really hyper competitive is what I would say now.
So is AdWords your number one channel then? Because you mentioned you're bidding on 28,000 different AdWords campaigns. So is that like the top marketing channel? Because it sounds like I would say that would probably be the one I would go after.
Yep. AdWords. And then we do put a lot into Facebook ads, right? We put a lot into Facebook ads and those two in particular are driving probably about 75 to 80% of our overall lead gen, right? And we look at it in a cultivation versus capture environment. We need you now. We need some students now, but we also want you when you're ready for a master's degree a year from now. So a lot of our, we're really looking at dual messaging going out there all the time. Are you ready to start now, enroll here? Or, here's a great piece of content about why a master's degree is important. And so we're really rotating that. We do a lot of split testing. We have about 200 landing pages. So we're always testing colors and text, hero images, right? We'll even, sometimes we're testing our homepage, right? We'll have we'll create 3 versions of our homepage and send new users on even amounts to each homepage. And one's got a video, one's got a hero image, and one's got a combination, some kind of slider or something. And we see what converts better. Time on page, reduce the bounce rate, all that kind of stuff. So big time in a split testing. And then we do a lot of email campaigns as well, which is also a big lead gen for us, because you develop leads over time and you want to keep converting the ones that you already have.
Yeah. Do you see a dip in email engagement though? I mean, I feel like on some level, looking at my email, every time I look at it, I'm like, I got to weed through a lot of junk before I find it. Does, but I find that it's becoming less and less relevant for me. Do you find that for marketing, it's getting harder to get the open rates?
Yes. I mean, I think that's true, right? Because it's iterative. Everything moved from calling you, right? We used to call you and sell you something, and then we emailed you to try to sell it to you, and now we text you and try to sell it to you. I mean, I think that it's an iterative, so it's a combination. Some students still want the phone call. Yeah. Some do not want to talk to you ever. Yeah. And so, text is big, but it's about, for us, it's about split testing. If we send the email from me and we send the email from, one of our enrollment managers, is the open rate different? And so we'll measure that open rate based on the subject line, based on the sender, and see where the open rates get better and which ones are worse, and then we'll iterate through that.
So when you do your Facebook advertising and you budget it out for the month, that I'm sure that can get kind of expensive. And when you're about to buy the ads, is there a part of you that's like, why am I giving this evil company my money?
Yeah, I mean, those are always thoughts you have, and then you go, okay, without this channel, we don't have anything to replace it right now. So I think it's survival of the fittest, right?
Somebody, if you're listening, please invent that Facebook killer. We're waiting for it over here.
Especially, the ads platform is the one that really needs to be replicated, because the targeting on Facebook is unbelievable. Now, tell me a little bit about the customer journey here, because I'm interested in, like, when you're running Facebook ads. I mean, you mentioned that some of it's going to be content, some of it's going to be what kind of calls to action are we going to see here? I mean, is it like book a call with a counselor? Is that like the main call? So you get somebody that they go from Facebook ads to sales call with your former role, the salesperson, or what? Like, how do you take a prospect that's doesn't know about this school and kind of take them along the journey through whatever means?
Yes, is the answer to all of that. Because, so back to the earlier point I made, we designed the process to be completely call it self-enrollment. I want to, so one ad might have an apply now button, and we're going to just serve you up the application. And if you've done your due diligence on the internet, which is where all of our information is, right? Completely transparent, you might just be ready to enroll. And why would you need to talk to anybody? Now, we might offer you that later. as you move through a financial aid process, for example, you're going to need to talk to somebody to understand that. It could be call us. We try to call us. So call to actions is really a variable for us, and we rotate it and we split test it. A lot of times it's a RFI. Just give us your information, we'll contact you. And then we're in the speed.
RFI? What's RFI?
Request for information, right? It's a request for information, and then it's a speed to lead environment for us, because we do know that students will submit their information to multiple colleges. It's like submitting applications to multiple colleges. So whoever's got the jump is usually the one that gets enrollment, right? There was a stat that came out a long time ago, a couple of years ago, that said 65% of students, I can't remember what it was, but 65 is the number, enroll in the first school that contacts them.
Wow.
So you want to be first.
And is it better to have a personal call for those types of interactions, or email is fine? I mean, what do you find to be the most effective to make those conversions?
If we can get you on the phone, Andros, if we can get you on the phone, that's the most effective. But that's a big if right now. I mean, even think about the cell phone is designed to not have you ever talk to anyone. You can leave me a voicemail and I don't even need to read it. I can just listen to it played back, or I can read the transcript. Right?
It's true. My telephone app is like the least used app on my phone.
Yeah, exactly right. And I don't need to take it up to my ear to see what you said in your voicemail. I'll just read the transcription.
Yeah.
So everything's designed to keep you in a short text communication mode.
So what audiences are you seeing the most conversion on, like online? Is that the older audience that you mentioned that you're running ads to, and they're and you're seeing better conversions with them? Because I imagine the younger audience is probably less on Facebook. I mean, if you're going for 18, maybe 17 to 21-year-olds, they're probably going to be less engaged on a platform like Facebook. They could be on Instagram. You might be able to get them on Instagram, but most of them are going to be more on like the TikTok, Snapchat, different demo, different platforms. So I'm just kind of curious, like when you're serving ads, are you mostly going after elder demographic? Are you doing both, or like how many different like levels of audiences do you go after?
Our typical students usually between the ages of 28 and 40. Let's say there's somewhere in there, right? There's somebody who, and at the graduate level, most of these guys, our students have gone to work, right? They've gone to work. Now they're an HR manager for XYZ company, and 5-7 years later, they want to go back and get a graduate degree. So that's really our primary market, is that student who's been in a career and now wants to advance, and a master's degree is necessary for them to do that, right? But there are more 22-year-olds looking at a master's degree now than there has been, because there's nothing else to do. The job market has been tough. There's just less jobs out there, so I might as well go back and get my master's degree. So we're seeing more of those younger students than we ever have seen before. Use the word elderly, which is interesting, because there are still older students that go back and get we call it a vanity degree, where it's really nothing else other than just to say that I have it. That's less common now than it used to be. Our programs are designed to be job training focused, right? HR manager, healthcare administration, organizational leadership, which is basically general business. So I can get skills in this degree and go apply them in my context. It's not these are not so esoteric that you can't do anything with them, in other words.
That's totally me, vanity degree. Like I have a bunch of those but they're all associate degrees, but they're all vanity. I don't need them. I have my bachelor's, but my bachelor's is in biopsychology. Has nothing to do with marketing, has nothing to do with business, but that's what I
know. If I had the time and the money, I'd get a degree in Klingon, just to say I have it,
Yeah, I mean, Marvel Comics would be a great degree, or something like that.
Well, actually, you bring up a really good point, and I'm curious about this. Have you run into any circumstance where you are doing some keyword research and you say to the people who run the curriculum, hey, if you offer this particular degree, or you change the degree to offer these classes, we can get a bigger market segment? Do you ever change the focus of a degree a little bit based on analytics?
Let me just say, like an example of that could be like social media marketing. Because I know at the local Ventura College, where near me, they recently added that program. So I think that would be an example of what Andros is kind of saying.
Yes, is the answer. If you're small enough and nimble and agile enough in higher ed, because higher ed is traditionally, now a lot of schools have moved a lot faster than they ever have before, but traditionally higher ed doesn't move that quickly. So if you're a small college, you can move quickly. Yeah, the answer is yes. You look at we have a social impact degree, right? It's a master's degree in social impact. And so when all of the social unrest started taking place, we went back to look at the degree and say, okay, is there enough in here about diversity, inclusion, these types of things that people are going to be interested in? And how do we pump up our curriculum to reflect that? Marketing is generally one of the most dangerous degrees to offer. We talk about it all the time. And then you have to decide, can you move as quickly to update your curriculum as marketing will move? Because marketing moves fast.
Oh, man. I tell anybody who asks me that, like, where do I start? I'm like, just go into a job and say, this is what I can do for you, and just know a little bit more than the next person. Because in fact, I used to teach classes with Justin. And at the beginning of the class, I would say, okay, this is what's going on right now. In 6 months, I'm going to teach this class again, and it's going to be totally different. Because you just don't know. And marketing is tough because anything that you start learning at the beginning of it will be different by the end of it.
There are those core foundations to marketing that you can teach. At least
sure.
They're all like the basic level marketing classes. When you get to the higher end,
then just read Propaganda by Edward Bernays, and that'll start you off.
And there's always a big question on who's teaching it. Too. So if you have a faculty member who happens to be the director of marketing for some digital agency, sounds great. If you've got a faculty member that is teaching marketing that happens to work in some, business over here that isn't doing any marketing, that's a mistake. So yeah, I mean, we have to update curriculum all the time, especially now with what's happening. Now, if you update it too much, you have to go into this change process with your accreditor, which can take a long time. So you have to be careful.
Yeah,
you got to throttle it a little bit to appease the accreditation. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. So speaking of, you mentioned an interesting point there, though, because I've heard a lot of one of the complaints I used to hear about going back for like an MBA was that most of the teachers are, they have MBAs themselves, or they have doctorates in business of some kind, but they've never had like real world business experience. So, I mean, are you seeing a trend where that is shifting more, where like students are now demanding more, that like they want to learn from people that have actually done the work in the real world, or is that just still kind of the same right now?
No, I think it's I think the student consumer is starting to become more savvy, financially savvy. This isn't just I go to school and take on debt. There's a concept of return on investment. It's just growing. If I'm going to invest all my money here, what do I get in return? One of those returns is learning from scholar practitioners, right? It's somebody who's working in their field that happens to also teach as an adjunct instructor, right? So they're a director of human resources for an organization. They teach a class. So they're applying what they have in their career and bringing that value into the course. Adult students, that's a big deal, right? Learning from those scholar practitioners. At the 18-year-old level, there's a lot of still faculty, arm patch type faculties in higher education. Now they've moved to online. That's been a big part of transition. And so everybody's learning new skills right now, which is a good place for higher ed to be, because we're iterating through this whole process of coronavirus.
Yeah, actually that's one of the things that's kind of going to be an interesting long-term effect of all of this, is that I noticed that there's a lot of people who are suddenly discovering new parts of themselves, people getting into bread baking and get gardening. And, I grew a garden this summer, and working out, or, just learning different skills, picking up the guitar, and a lot of creativity out there, a lot of people doing creative projects. And so we're just expanding themselves through education. And where that will go inevitably is going to be very, very interesting, because people are starting to shift their own dynamics about how they plugged into society. And that is completely out the window now. We still, if a vaccine is still a year or two away, and this thing comes back with new mutations, and we're going to have to deal with this type of thing for the next year or two, or if there's a deadlier variation of this, man, who knows what's going to happen in the next year? If the election goes one way or the other, zombie apocalypse is still on my bingo card for 2020. So,
Yeah, and it's funny because you look at that from when we look at that from the higher ed perspective. I'm an employee. I'm sitting in my bedroom. I work. My bed's right there, and I work right here. I walk 3 feet to work, right? And I get the kids taken care of with my wife, and I'm in my bedroom like 16 hours a day. So one of the ways that I've taken on some mental health, because mental health is so important, is what you're talking about. I podcast. I have my own podcast, and that's the way I deal with things and fill my time. Others, like you said, gardening and doing all this. How do you give that up now? Now, let's say everything goes away. and it's return to office. How many people are going to go, I don't know, man.
That's
if I wanna do
actually,
that.
that's a question that I ask almost all of our guests. And I'm going to ask it of you. Do you think that you'll be able to go back to the way things were, going to an office, being away from your family for long stretches of time? Do you think you'll ever be able to do that again?
That's a hard question because it comes with both a professional and personal context. And I think professionally, there's some benefits to being in person, but we're figuring out how to deal with that. Personally, it's going to be hard. I'm trying to be an active guy, so I work out during the day at lunch when I can. And it'd be hard to give that up, man, and go back to like a night schedule. So, I feel healthier. I feel more mentally sharp. I'm spending more time with my kids because I'm not in the car. You need to think about the family impact, and a lot of companies are going to stay remote. So I think you're going to see the big companies hopefully blaze the trail. But yeah, it would be hard to. I would hate to be the leader that says, Justin and Andros, you guys got to come back to work. I'm sorry, you just got to be back to work at 8:30 tomorrow morning. Sorry. Yeah, I think that's gonna be tough.
Full time.
We're already seeing that with some companies have announced or some of them doing like hybrid schedules too, where you only have to come in like one day in the office, and they're going to shrink down their commercial space so that they have a meeting room. So like for emergency, important meetings, they can happen in person, but they'll get a smaller office. They don't need as many cubicles. They don't need all the other stuff, and they'll kind of run on a hybrid model. And I'm seeing some companies already kind of announce that. And several have just said that they're going to extend work from home permanently also. So I do think that the shift is happening. And Andros, did you have something to add there?
Well, I mean, you're in an interesting spot because I do think that especially because you don't have to advertise to a specific location either. The thing with online learning is that, in having the type of school that you have, that's as small as it is and nimble enough, is that you can even advertise to people like in the UK, and it's global at this point. So,
well, and I think about, guys, I don't want to interrupt, but I think about how other mediums will make a comeback. My TV's on sometimes in the background. I would be at work all day. So does a company go, that people, for a marketer, you're at home more and you have you're more screen time, right? So when you're in the bathroom, you probably got your phone. You're at work. It's
you don't know
there,
me.
right?
You don't know me.
Yeah, I know you got your phone in the bathroom, but you think about how much more screen time we have. I check my phone sometimes when I'm just sitting here, and I'd be in some meeting. Yeah. So for a marketer, you just have more opportunity to sell, and you wonder if companies are going to just look at that and say everybody needs to stay home. They're buying more.
Yeah, that's an interesting question, and not only that, I understand that people are also trying to look into like advertising on smart TVs and stuff like that. My heart goes out to the movie theaters because we're witnessing the end of the movie theater, and that to me is. I grew up in movies. My family was in the industry, so it's like.
But it might be the return of the drive-in.
Yeah, drive-ins. Maybe if you're a teenager and you're taking your girlfriend to the drive-in, good times. But that's I think it's like our home theaters are just 4K TVs are getting cheaper, and Disney just recently said that they were transitioning most of their efforts into online streaming. So it's like, yeah, this is the new normal, and so how. For a school like yours, it hasn't been that much of a transition really to this type of thing. But for jobs and companies that are having an issue, what do you suggest would be like the first things that you do to kind of transition into this sort of thing? Like as a marketer, if you were to present this as an option for a company, what do you see would be the benefits, and how would you position this type of thing for online learning, just online in general, like doing this type of thing?
Well, big question too. There's so many impacts. There's so many consequences, right? But for higher ed, and to get to the point of your question, is we on my podcast that we've interviewed about 30 university presidents from all across
What's
the
the name
land.
of your podcast?
It's called the Ed Up Experience,
Okay.
EDUP, the Ed Up Experience. And so we've had some pretty amazing guests from, big public universities, very small private ones. Look, there's still a push to have students on campus, right? I just don't know how the flu mixes with coronavirus, how it mutates, what this looks like over the holidays and everything stops. And kids are supposed to go back to school and sometime in January or a little. I don't know that there's enough time to plan for how to do this in the right way. So online learning is going to continue through next year, probably at least for 6 to 8 months. And then there will be a big question about fall of 2021.
Yeah.
Right? So let me ask you, I want to ask, because if online learning continues, and let's say this lasts even longer, I mean, we don't really know what the timetable is, but I mean, if this goes for like 2 more years, how are you, like, what does it mean when the schools that have all the money get online and start tapping into the online marketplace for recruitment as well? Because, like schools like Harvard have like $100 billion sitting in their reserves or something ridiculous. So, I mean, like, how do you compete once like the big dogs start putting their money in online? Or are you prepared for that? Like, what are you seeing now? Like, how much money are they putting in now? What's happening? I don't know. Elaborate.
Yeah, a pretty large percentage increases across the land in the online marketing advertising, right? Just the lead costs are creeping up every little bit as people figure this out. And so there's schools that were online. There's big online universities in the United States that have figured this out, even small ones. All right. So, but now you enter the market, you've got a lot of money. What's transitioning for those schools who are primarily on ground and they're moving to online is understanding that you need a much bigger marketing budget to compete. Your marketing budget was view books and bus stop advertisements in your geography, things like that. And now you're in online. You need more money. So there's a big mental shift on what marketing is when it comes to higher education.
Because some of the keywords that you're going after, like the cost per click, is like outrageous. It's like in some cases like $100 per click, right?
Yeah, if you look for like online master's degree or something that's ambiguous like that, yeah, you're spending quite a bit of money to get a lead there, right? So you have to be really specific, but then who's looking for something so specific, right? Are you looking for an online bachelor's degree in engineering with a focus in accounting? Nobody's bidding on that.
For left-handed people.
Yeah, for left-handed people, exactly right. So but the money's it's coming in. And it's coming in more and faster. And so what's going to happen is schools will close. There's going to be, and the close means different things, right? So there's a lot of people out there predicting, maybe up to 10, 15% overall consolidation in colleges and universities across the U.S. Primarily, that will hurt institutions that have 1,000 or less students. You've got a year or two of operating dollars, and now you need to compete in online. You're just not going to be able to do it. So can I combine my model with 4 other schools and do a shared services model? Can I close completely? Can I merge into someone else? So we're seeing the M&A area, merger and acquisition area, creep up pretty significantly right now. Lots of movement.
What kind of schools are in jeopardy here? I mean, are you talking about like other online schools? Are you talking about what kind of schools are you seeing that are in jeopardy due to these big changes coming through?
Yeah, it's probably your religious institutions that are either on ground or online. Most of the schools that are in trouble were in trouble before coronavirus. Coronavirus just sped up that trouble. It just sped it up really fast. So small private institutions, niche institutions that can't really find their niche to the right mass that they need, is, to your point, you mentioned Harvard with, I think $1 billion in endowment. Are they in trouble? Nope. They can do whatever they want to do for as long as they want to do it. If you have college football, as long as that continues, I don't know what crowd revenue looks like, but probably college sports are going to make you okay. You'll find a different way to be charged for it if you can't go in person. Right. And they'll probably charge it to be streaming at some point. And then, so it's a small private institution, no sports, not looking into other areas of revenue other than tuition revenue, can't fundraise. If you got $10 in your pocket right now and you're an institution looking for money, Justin or Andros, I don't know if where are you going to donate that money? It's probably going to be some health cause right now. If you got an extra $10,
it's going to go to my belly. I'm going to get some chocolate.
When you say you can't fundraise, you just mean because there's so much competition, like people are putting it towards like coronavirus relief and things like that. Is that what you mean?
Got it. Right. So if there were dollars going to education, they're either going in the My Left Pocket Foundation or they're going to healthcare. Right. That's one of the two places they're going. So education has less dollars available. So you need more students and there's less students.
And there's also this other kind of thing that I read this article. I think it was in the New Yorker, and it was talking about how there's a whole generation of children who they don't have access to online curriculums. They don't, like, they have their mom's phone, and they're supposed to do like a Google sheet on their mother's phone, or do a report on their on a phone, and then the mother takes it and they don't, or they lose their phone or whatever. They don't have like a computer. They don't even have online access. And so a lot of, and they have to sit there in a boring Zoom class. And so a lot of them just don't show up anymore. And there is a generation of poor children who are dispossessed economically, and they are disappearing, unfortunately. And so I can see also at some point there being some sort of mechanism where we are able to capture these kids and put them back into an online curriculum. I think one way that the United States can get its act back together, there's two things that can happen. And honestly, if they gave free internet to the entire country, and they gave free online learning to accredited colleges to every single person in the United States, and ideally the world, if we could educate the world, then we could probably get some karma back, in good graces. But that's a pipe dream.
Yeah, and your point, the consequences of this are there. Nothing comes without consequences, and hunger. Right? There are people that have, on their college campus to escape their home life, and now we stick them in a home life that's, negative to say the least. What does that look like from internet? I was talking to a community college president. They extended their Wi-Fi to the edges of their parking lots. And so they had people just literally sitting in their cars or sleeping in their cars to have the internet access. That because, community colleges, usually you have commuter students. They're in, they're out, they're working, whatever. So, in the parking lots to get internet access to complete their schoolwork. And so, there are absolutely problems that have to be dealt with, from a lower economic quartile, being able to make internet accessible to anybody who needs it and wants it, because they have to be able to learn. And have the same opportunity. You can't just go anywhere you want anymore. People are afraid of getting sick. There's a lot of risk tolerance. Every one of our individual risk tolerances is so different.
It's so true.
And what about like learning styles? I mean, is there like a certain population of student that just has trouble adapting to an online environment? Because I could see that being an issue, especially for someone that's very extroverted or loves to be around people. Have you seen like any certain populations that are just struggling to make the transition, or like what happens there?
The answer is yes. I mean, I think with any major transition, you have people who've been used to learning on ground, and now you move into an online environment, and it's like, okay, wait a second, what am I doing? I don't understand this. There's a different cadence. Sometimes it's completely asynchronous, which means there's a due date at the end, and you get the work, and you have to do it whenever you have time, right? That's not like Tuesday at 4 and Wednesday at 7. It's asynchronous, and so I think that there are a lot of folks that learn better on ground. That's why it is going to be key that we still have institutions that figure out how to make that work, even if coronavirus doesn't get better for a while, right? And it can be limiting. It's de-densifying, right? The whole idea of space in the classrooms. How do you teach HVAC? How do you teach, how do you become an airplane pilot?
Or auto mechanic.
Auto mechanic. So you still have think about medical assistants that have to practice blood draws. I mean, I would hate to have a medical assistant that's never given a blood draw, given it to me the first time. So there's still going to have to be work that's done. And to your point about catching students we're missing, especially in K through 12, there might be something in between, right? Expecting kids who are 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 to be sitting in front of a Zoom for 40, 50, 60 minutes is completely unreasonable. This is not going to happen. So what does that need to look like? So K through 12 has to invest a lot of money in instructional design to make sure that they are designing their educational experience right for the kid. It could be 20 minutes at a time, and then they have to go away and do something at home or in pods, right? That's a big deal now where you have 8 kids and they rotate houses with their different parents to keep an eye on them. But I think that, that's a big question. What do we do about hunger, about accessibility? And those are big things in higher ed.
That's a really tough one too. Here in the Netherlands, they went into extreme lockdown, and then they had to weigh it out, where it was basically like, do we keep the kids at home? But if we keep the kids at home, the parents can't work, right? So they wait it out and they go, well, it's going to be better for the kids if we put them back into school. And of course, as soon as we did that, we now have this huge spike. We went from having like 200 cases a day. We're now at like 8,000 and growing every day. And it's really tough. I mean, I personally, I love having my kid around. I work with him. You know, we do schoolwork with him. Luckily, the schools, because we pay outrageously high taxes here, the schools are amazing, right?
Yeah.
And they already have made the transition to doing some online curriculum, but it's really tough. So do you think that part of what your school will offer in the future is maybe something that's like finishing high school education for these missing kids?
I think there are a number of schools that are going to go there, right? I think my institution probably not, because we're found our niche at the graduate level, but absolutely, I think that's going to be a big key. Is where are these kids going, right? How are they disappearing, and how do we find them and engage them back in the educational process, at least through high school, right? That's the big concern, is that you have just dropouts of high school now. The kids are just completely disappearing. We talked to one K through 12 district here in Southern California that we were helping understand online learning. They had, 16,000 kids in their district, and they were saying that almost 10 to 15% have completely disappeared, right? So how do you recapture that? So yeah, I mean, these are big issues. Senior year dance doesn't have the same,
No.
desire anymore. My heart cries when I walk down the street and I see a sign out in front of somebody's house that says, my kids graduated, or it's been a continuation, and there's a sign with them in their cap and gown. And it's like, you don't get that moment anymore as a kid. To know that you graduated and got something and accomplished something, and nobody can
virtual prom.
you.
Yeah, but it's also something about the ritual, right? It's like we are a species that thrive on ritual, and I think the whole process of going through the ritual, like when you go from being a boy to a man, or you have your coming out party, or whatever it is, that's important. And if you miss that, there is something that kind of nicks at your soul a little bit. And so this, it's, who knows what the randomness of all of this is going to generate, but people, I think on some level think that things are going to go back to some normalcy, and you can't put the genie back in the bottle. This is it. I mean, we're entering a whole new era of our species.
Everything.
So
everything's going to change.
So what's your prediction for where you think things are going next?
Oh man. Here's what I'll say. I think as kids are moving through now and they're becoming exposed to online learning, we have kids, and I have a 6er and a 3 who are digital natives. They know how to work an iPhone as well as I did when I was 22. It's unbelievable. So I think to myself, I learn online every day, and it doesn't mean I'm in school. I read my news online. I don't read a newspaper anymore, so I learn online. And I think that that's the way we're engineering our society, is to be online and be learning through our online tools. And so I think the future of education is going to be online. Now, that may not be fully online, but it will be at least partly online. Why? Because schools are going to figure out that they can get more students by having the choice of online, right? So there's I talk about the student being a customer. It's like a menu, right? You want to have enough choices on the menu to keep your customer. If you're only offering on ground, you're not going to get the online student. And if you're offering only online, you may not get the on ground student. You may be okay with that. But schools that want to continue, especially undergraduate schools that want to continue to grow, have to have that hybrid model. And one of you guys said, I think, Justin, it could be 2 days in, 2 days out, 2 days in, 5 days out. I mean, it may be like that, right?
Wow. So do you see the experience being shifted here as we move forward with online education? Like, do you think the gamification or things like that might come into online education the way that they've come into like online digital courses to get people to complete them? Because I'm someone that, can sit in a seminar for 8 hours and be like, good, but you give me like an 8-hour digital course and it's like difficult for me to go sit through that. So I'm kind of just wondering, is that something that's kind of being worked on right now? People are trying to figure out, like, how do we maintain attention levels for, you mentioned the kindergartners earlier, like expecting them to be on for 45 minutes. Like, how do we maintain their attention if this is going to continue?
Yeah, I mean, at the K through 12 level, there's a big question on attention span and a big question on how kids need to learn, right? There's so much hands-on work that they have to do, and if that's taken away, what it does to the psychology of kids, and we won't understand the effects of coronavirus on our kids until 20 years from now when they come out with studies and research, right? I think for the adult, I imagine a world where the three of us are attending a course and we're seeing each other inside virtual reality, right? Either with an avatar or a picture of yourself inside a virtual classroom and a virtual desk with a virtual faculty member up at the top of that, giving a lecture.
Ready Player One.
Exactly. I mean, I think that movie has predicted the future. It's a question of how fast institutions will get there. And if I can be in a Stanford library, pulling a book off, opening that up virtually, and I can get any library in any university in the world, that would be pretty cool to do. That'd be really cool. How can we all be in a course and see each other? And it's not through the Zoom, right? Maybe it's 3-dimensional. It's VR and AI and all that stuff. It's schools are experimenting with that now.
Yeah, and that's a tough one because it's really about the energy. I mean, even though I see the both of you, I think that if we were all in a room together, the energy would be a lot different, right? We are, as humans, we're sensitive to things that we can't even voice. So
the VR though, I mean, you're coming into another thing where cost becomes an issue because some parents can't afford VR headsets for their kids. Now that'll probably change over time. They'll become cheaper. And
I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I don't think VR will ever truly take off because I don't trust anything that I might be doing something questionable and someone can come in and leave a sandwich at my desk and leave. And then I realize that mom brought me lunch in the middle.
It needs a motion detector or something.
Or they're going to come through the VR and reprogram your brain, right? So make you think that you're not in marketing anymore.
Thank you, Elon
We're already
Musk.
in a VR world right now, though, Andres. This is all.
I know we Justin and I often debate whether or not this is just an artificial reality, and we're in some large scale video game. Because if I read this whole thing in a book, I would think that it was ridiculous. But yet here we are.
It's a poorly written video game.
We're coming up towards the end. If you could, there's two questions. One question I want to ask before we end the show, and that is for the person who is has their own online curriculum or an online course, and they were to market it. What would you? Give me a bullet point of the strategies you would employ if you wanted to market that online course to your target demographic or niche market.
Well, what I would say is right now, exploring business partnerships with organizations is a big way to do that, right? If you have a course, whether it's credit or non-credit, businesses still need training. They need to find innovative ways to deliver training. It could be delivering their own training through an online environment. How do they do that? How do I take my HR training and put that online if I haven't done it already? Yeah. So I think there's a really big market there for business relationships, and you look at customized training. Can I get with you guys and say, what do you need in terms of training, and customize that and deliver a product to you that you want to use at your organization? So that's one of the first places I would go. The business to consumer marketing pathway is harder and harder and harder. So I think you have to look at the alternatives. You have to look at it in groups, referral programs, all of those types of things to build out your infrastructure and make yourselves, more, noticeable. Differentiate is a big thing here. So how do I take my program and differentiate against somebody else that probably has the exact same program? That's the question.
Now, let me ask you this, because before we finish up here, you mentioned that referrals were one of your top sources of new students as well. Do you do anything to cultivate referrals, or do you do any efforts on your part to encourage students to refer other students?
Yeah, for us, there's the two pathways. The students, we live in the age of data privacy. So the individual referral is so much harder to get than it used to be. Give me your buddy's phone number. It's like, nah, I'm not going to do that. Maybe I'll tell him you're interested and he'll give you a call. So the whole data privacy, people are scared about their identity being stolen. So for us, we focus more on the organizational referral, right? For our students, 90-something% of them are working and they work at a company. Float me your HR contact via email, introduce me, network with me on LinkedIn, set me up in a group with 2 or 3 people that you know. So I think it's the alternative pathways than just information dump on me, your name and phone number of your friend. Connect me on LinkedIn, right? That's what I want. Give me a connection on LinkedIn and I'll reach out. I'll pay the $60 and reach out through the in-mail if I have to, instead of you asking you that really uncomfortable question these days of, who do you know? Can you tell me who you go to school? Who's your friend? That it's just a harder question with data privacy.
And it feels phony. Well, amazing stuff, Joe. Where can people find you? Learn more about Claremont Lincoln. Tell us again about your podcast.
Sure. Claremont Lincoln University is www.claremontlincoln.edu. I encourage everybody to check it out if you get a chance. We've trademarked socially conscious education, so that's our big differentiator right now.
I love it.
And I am my website is joesallustio.com, and then my podcast is called The Ed Up Experience at www.edupexperience.com with my co-hosts Elizabeth Leiba and Elvin Freitas.
All right, cool. And we'll put links down in the podcast description. Before we go, the very last question we always ask our guests is, what are you most geeky about right at this moment? Doesn't have to be work related. It's more like, are you binge watching something, reading something cool, comic books, hobby? What are you geeking out about? Playing guitar?
I'm a true geek in every sense of the word. I am a nightly Modern Warfare player on my PS4. Nice. Will be PS5 the minute I can get my hands on one. My stress reliever is games. I don't care how old you think I am or anybody that knows how old I am. I will play games until the day I die because it's the way I relieve stress. So I geek out on the games. I'm into podcasting. I love having conversations with interesting people. So that's I'm getting into all this stuff that you guys are into, and that's what I geek out on these days. And that's my if I can go around a Modern Warfare and get a couple of good games in, that's I consider it a good night.
Nice. Justin, what do you got going on this week?
Well, not too much, but I did see a story about Marvel Cinematic Universe that in the next Spider-Man movie, which is coming out, I don't know, I think it's supposed to come out next year, but who knows, when any of these movies ever return to theaters, is most likely going to be a Into the Spider-Verse movie. So they're gonna follow that formula, and they cast Jamie Foxx to reprise his role as Electro from the Amazing Spider-Man, which was a totally different universe of Spider-Man. And so that's kind of cluing people into the idea that they're going to be combining the Tobey Maguire, the Andrew Garfield, and the Tom Holland universes all together.
Yeah.
So I think half the listeners have no idea what I'm talking about, but just know that Spider-Man 3 is going to be interesting.
One of your guests does, just for the record.
All right, well, we did an episode a couple of months ago when the Morbius trailer came out, where we broke down why Sony is integrating the multiverse into the MCU and how they're doing it. It's brilliant. So the podcast was brilliant too, but I forget what episode that was. But we broke down the trailer frame by frame. And then as far as
you also did an episode where I complained about Terminator Dark Fate for an hour.
Yeah, that was good times. Because I hadn't seen the movie, and so. I got a good one. That I'm geeking out about. This is like deep track geek. Did you know that William Gibson wrote a Alien screenplay? He wrote Alien 3. He wrote the initial draft of Alien 3. William Gibson, who coined the phrase cyberspace, wrote Neuromancer, famous sci-fi guy, futurist. And so I just got into Audible. I have the membership where they do now an all you can listen to with books. Some of my dad's books are on there, which were pretty amazing. But they have an audio drama of the screenplay of Alien 3. Yeah, that's amazing. It, you know what? It's not as good as Aliens. I mean, you can't. That's like going on stage after the Who has smashed their instruments. You can't beat Aliens. It's not quite as good as Alien, but by far it is the best Alien movie. Follow up. They should have made it. And so
better than Alien Resurrection. Or Prometheus, or
Prometheus. God.
Man, I watched Prometheus, and I was honestly, I had to watch it again because I was like, I'm missing something because this movie feels very self-important, and I'm
it
missing.
has a lot of like philosophical ideas, but they're just a mess.
Yeah, and looking back, it's like, oh my god. So if you have the Audible app, it's free with your subscription. Is the audio drama version? It's like Lance Hankerson and the what's his name who played Kyle Reese. Michael Biehn plays Reese, and Bishop is played by Lance Hankerson. They're doing the voices, and you can hear the movie. But
they got the actors too.
They got the actors, yeah, the whole
that's
thing.
Pretty cool.
And it's at the end of it, you're like, oh, I feel like I saw Alien 3, but it's not shitty. So that's the
I'll
thing.
throw a link to start a trial of Audible in the show notes too, an affiliate link.
Yeah, there you go. So click on it and listen to it. Let me know how it is. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I want to say thank you so much to our
Joe Sallustio.
Guys, Sallustio.
Joe Sallustio. Thank you so much.
I don't know why I had trouble with that one.
It's been a pleasure. This was a great show. Good luck, and I'd love to have you back on in a few months to find out.
Sallustio.
Yeah, where all of this goes. So
yeah, it'd be a pleasure. It's been an honor to talk to you guys and a lot of fun.
Yeah. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, we're out. Just wait, Joe.
Still live.
We're still live.
Still live. Not doing anything crazy for a minute.
But
it would really think that.
Yeah, don't throw your headphones down and be like, "This is terrible."